Hello and welcome back to the Shutter Sports Refresh. This is the weekly show that breaks down all of the most important news in sports for you. I'm your host, Finn Noel, and it is almost summer season in sports. We've got the ray of sunshine at the top of the screen. I'm wearing my summer outfit, so let's get into the end of these winter season sports. And we'll start things off with the NBA Finals. The Indiana Pacers and the Oklahoma City Thunder have been through 2 games in their series so far, and the Thunder have dominated them both, except the series is still tied 1-1. And I know that sounds confusing, but the Indiana Pacers actually did take the first game because of a absolutely ridiculous 0.3 seconds on the clock game winner from Tyrese Halliburton. What the Halliburton, as people have been saying online. The Pacers came back down by 7 with 3 minutes left in the game to take game 1, despite 38 points from the league MVP Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. But in Game 2, the Thunder did not play around, and Shai once again had 30-plus points, so the series is tied 1-1 going into Game 3 in Indiana. Make sure to tune back into the refresh next week for an update. Moving into the NHL now, the Stanley Cup Finals has also finished up 2 games. In Game 1, the Florida Panthers went up 3-1 deep into the second quarter with 2 goals from Sam Bennett and another from their new acquisition, Brad Marchand. And their opponents, the Edmonton Oilers, were behind the 8 ball on home ice and responded over the course of the next 2 periods and ended up evening it up to send it into overtime. And in overtime, Edmonton dominated but just couldn't seem to find the back of the net. They spent 19 minutes and 30 seconds trying to find a goal, but with just 30 seconds left before a double OT, on a power play, Connor McDavid and the rest of the Oilers put 3 Panthers out of the play, leading to a 2-on-1 that led to a Leon Draisaitl game-winning goal. Now in Game 2, the excitement would be much the same, but let's make it 1 period better as this one required double overtime. It was a 4-4 game, but the silence was broken by Brad Marchand with a very deceptive shot to win the game for the Panthers. So the series is tied 1-1. Game 3 is going on tonight and actually might be over by the time this video is posted, so make sure to tune into that score and into the refresh next week for more results on the Stanley Cup Finals. Moving into tennis now, Roland Garros, or better known as the French Open, is finished up. We left you last week in the 3rd round, but the finals are over in both the men's and women's brackets, so here are some updates on what happened. First off, in the men's bracket, the semifinals ended up being the number 1 ranked Jannik Sinner versus the legend of the game, Novak Djokovic. And on the other side of the semifinals, it was 2 young studs. Number 8 ranked 23-year-old Lorenzo Musetti was facing number 2 ranked 22-year-old Carlos Alcaraz. And while Sinner made quick work of his match with the 38-year-old Djokovic, the other semifinal was much more interesting. Musetti, who has never won a Grand Slam in his entire career, ended up taking the first set on Alcaraz. And he was leading in the second set before unfortunately blowing his left thigh in the middle of the match. He ended up playing another set before having to leave the match, unfortunately due to injury, which made Carlos Alcaraz the winner and advanced him to the finals. And so it was Sinner and Alcaraz in the finals, and oh my gosh was there drama in this match. 3 of their 5 sets went into sudden death. Sinner took the first 2 sets, but Alcaraz ended up besting Sinner in the final 3 sets, 2 of which went to sudden death. And that meant Carlos Alcaraz was the winner of the French Open. This was his 2nd straight French Open win, and he's now won every Grand Slam except for the Australian Open. Let's move over now to the women's bracket. The fun story in this one was the hometown hero, French Louise Boisson. She came into the tournament ranked number 361, having to qualify for it through wildcard playoffs. But she ended up beating 2 top 10 opponents to get into the semifinals against number 2 ranked Coco Gauff on home turf. And the other semifinal match was between number 1 ranked Aryna Sabalenka versus Iga Swiatek. That one went 3 sets, and Aryna Sabalenka dominated the 3rd set to move into the finals. And unfortunately for Boisson's legendary run, she was dominated by Coco Gauff, which means it was Coco Gauff versus Aryna Sabalenka in the finals. And in the finals, Coco Gauff ended up taking down Sabalenka in 3 sets to win the French Open. This is just Gauff's 2nd career Grand Slam win after winning the US Open in 2023. Congratulations to Alcaraz and Gauff on these awesome wins. Now let's move away from all these playoff tournaments and get into some offseason news with the NFL. The legendary Aaron Rodgers has signed to a new team, the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers are picking up Rodgers for a 1-year rental as they look to find their quarterback of the future. For Rodgers, at age 41, this is his chance to prove that he can still play in the NFL and is looking for a spot in the league next year. Now let's move over to some MLB baseball. The hottest team in all of baseball are the Toronto Blue Jays, who have won 10 of their last 13 and have found themselves in the last playoff spot in the American League. And the Cleveland Guardians, Kansas City Royals, Seattle Mariners are also all within 2 games in the relatively weak American League. But unfortunately, the team nobody wants to be is the Colorado Rockies. The only teams with a lower winning percentage in the history of baseball are the 1899 Cleveland Spiders. Hopefully they can turn their season around. And for our last piece of news this week, let's talk about UFC. In UFC 316, Merab Dvalishvili defended his title against Sean O'Malley in a bantamweight championship matchup. And Merab Dvalishvili dominated the entire matchup and ended up submitting Sean O'Malley in just the 3rd round. And the co-main event was another bantamweight championship matchup between Juliana Pena and Kayla Harrison. This was just Kayla Harrison's third fight at bantamweight, but she dominated just like the other two fights she had at that bantamweight level, and she ended up stealing the belt from Juliana Pena. The win was via submission in the second round for Harrison's first ever title. Congratulations to Dvalishvili and to Harrison. And that's all for this week's episode of the Shutter Sports Refresh. I've been your host, Finn Noel, and I hope you learned something today. You can check me out, the writer Lucky Roberts, and of course Shutter Sports Media out on Instagram just down here. Thanks for watching.